So cool.
Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain The Unhealer. This film tells the story of a man who his friends often bully and finally gets a secret power. Will the revenge of a bully victim bring good in the end? Let's find out in The Unhealer. The Unhealer begins with an old man named P. Pfluger who is dismantling a sacred tomb at night. Suddenly lightning struck the grave and made him throw away. After the explosion, a golden light was seen. P. Pfluger just laughed and left. The next day, a young man named Kelly entered the shop and bought some food. There Kelly met a school friend named Dominique. Kelly loves chewing plastic. Several youths caught him chewing a plastic dessert outside the shop and immediately mocked him. It doesn't stop there. The youth led by Nelson also bullied Kelly by putting him in the trash. Luckily, the shop owner and Dominique, who heard the commotion, came out and immediately chased the delinquents away. Kelly then changed clothes and went to school. Arriving at school, Kelly often gets bad treatment from his friends. Nelson and his group apparently filmed the bullying and Kelly became the subject of ridicule at one school. Kelly accidentally bumps into a young man named Tucker, but because he apologized, Tucker let him go. While at home, Kelly helps his mother, Bernice, lift groceries from the car. Elsewhere, Dominique is annoyed with her mother because she mocks Kelly's strange habit of eating plastic. Elsewhere, seen a man named Red Elk, who was performing a ritual. He was the keeper of the sacred tomb that P. Pfluger had dismantled the night before. The scene returns to Kelly lying shirtless on the sofa. Bernice called a doctor to the house because she was worried about Kelly, who has a strange appetite. The doctor suggested that Bernice take Kelly to a psychiatrist to have his condition checked. The doctor then invited Bernice to dinner, but she refused. The scene switches to P. Pfluger, who is promoting his healing powers to the citizens. An old woman who had difficulty walking approached P. Pfluger and begged to be healed. Miraculously, P. Pfluger managed to heal the woman just by touching her feet. Everyone who witnessed this was in awe of his power, including Bernice. She then begged P. Pfluger to heal her son. P. Pfluger then agreed. After Bernice leaves, P. Pfluger is visited by Red Elk, who learns that he got the power after dismantling the sacred tomb. Red Elk urges P. Pfluger to restore his powers, but P. Pfluger refuses and says that he wants those powers. P. Pfluger went to Bernice's caravan house. He put his hand on Kelly's forehead, who lay limp. P. Pfluger felt a strange sensation as he touched Kelly that made his chest tighten. The old man excused himself for a moment to the bathroom to take his medicine. P. Pfluger again tries to cure Kelly. When their skin touched, the old man's body shook instead, then suddenly collapsed to the floor unconscious. After P. Pfluger fell, Kelly then rose fresh and fit and hungry stomach. Bernice then called the police and called an ambulance. Sheriff Adler arrives and P. Pfluger is pronounced dead. Adler said P. Pfluger had a mental breakdown and apologized that the old man had scared and tricked Bernice and her son. Kelly and her mother decided to keep what really happened a secret. The next day, Kelly was injured while repairing his bicycle, but the wound immediately healed. Kelly was overjoyed and thought that P. Pfluger's healing powers had transferred to him. Kelly then told his mother. He took the can of drink his mother was holding and drank it. Bernice is very grateful that finally her child can eat normally and looks healthier and more vibrant. Kelly then meets with Dominique, who says that he looks different. After Dominique leaves, Reed shows up and beats Kelly up, but Kelly was completely unharmed and in pain. Instead, it was Reed who got hurt and felt the pain of his own doing. Reed complained to his father, Gus, who was the football coach at Kelly's school. That evening, Gus visits Bernice's caravan house and asks Kelly about his fight with Reed, but Bernice refused to talk to Gus and immediately closed the door. Bernice demands an explanation from her son and Kelly tells her mother what really happened while practicing, that he can't feel pain. Kelly asked Bernice to pinch him, but what happened instead was Bernice herself who felt the pain from the pinch. Bernice believed her son's words and asked Kelly to keep his powers a secret. While studying in class, Kelly imagines herself having sex with Dominique and Sarah. Dominique felt a strange sensation in her sensitive area, but she tried to hold it in because she was taking lessons in class. However, Sarah suddenly screamed in class because of the pleasure she felt. It turns out that Kelly's power can also make someone in their mind feel what he imagines at the same time. That evening, Kelly's school was having a party. Nelson and his friends seduced Dominique, but she looks uncomfortable. Kelly approached them and tried to help Dominique. Kelly almost got into a fight with Nelson and his friends, but Gus broke them up immediately. It's clear that Gus doesn't like Kelly and wants to discover what really happened to Reed. Nelson and his friends come home from the party in Brad's car. On the way, they saw Kelly coming home on his bicycle. Brad looked annoyed. He gripped the steering wheel as he stomped on the gas pedal, trying to hit Kelly. Nelson and the others looked panicked and tensed as Brad drove his car at high speed. Brad managed to hit Kelly until his body entered under the car. Surprisingly, it was Brad who died and Kelly was not injured in the slightest. Nelson and the others immediately reported the incident to the police. Dominique and Sarah are shocked by the accident that killed Brad. Police and ambulances arrived at the scene, likewise with Bernice, who was worried about her child's condition. Kelly had already revealed his secret to Dominique and she had promised not to tell anyone. Nelson and his friends said that Kelly was deliberately hurting them, even though Brad had tried to avoid running into him. But Sheriff Adler didn't believe what Nelson and his friends said. The next day, Red Elk visited P. Pfluger's grave to confirm something. Elsewhere, Nelson and his friends are watching Kelly and Dominique having lunch together at school. Nelson seemed to be planning something with his friends. In the evening, Red Elk visits Kelly, who works part-time at a restaurant. The man said that it was very strange that Kelly was not injured after the accident. Kelly argued that he was thrown into the bushes. Red Elk asked Kelly about P. Pfluger. The young man said that P. Pfluger was trying to cure him and just died. When he got home, Kelly found his mother was sick. Kelly went out to buy medicine for his mother, but unbeknownst to Kelly, Nelson and his friends were nearby, keeping an eye on the state of the house. After seeing Bernice's car drive away, Nelson and his friends thought no one was at Kelly's house. They then attached a chain to the stone support of Kelly's house and pulled it with their car. The actions of Nelson and his friends caused the gas pipe in Kelly's house to detach and trigger an explosion that destroyed Kelly's caravan house and killed Bernice, who was inside. Kelly, who had just arrived, then burst into his burning house to save his mother. But unfortunately, Bernice's life could not be saved anymore. After undergoing treatment at the hospital, Kelly was declared healthy and was able to go home immediately. But Sheriff Adler asked the doctor for permission to let Kelly stay in the hospital that night because he had no other family or relatives. Adler then visited Kelly with the remnants of his late mother's clothes. Red Elk visits Adler at the hospital and reveals that P. Pfluger's healing powers have passed to Kelly. That's why Kelly wasn't hurt in the slightest after being hit by Brad, and was fine after running through the fire. Seeing Adler's reaction, which didn't necessarily believe his words, Red Elk then advised the sheriff that he could come to him at any time if he had started to believe and see it with his own eyes. After his mother's funeral, Kelly visits P. Pfluger's grave to dispel his powers. Dominique tries to calm Kelly down and says that the incident that killed Bernice was not his fault, but Kelly persisted. He thought none of this would have happened if he had never had P. Pfluger's healing powers. Dominique relented and continued to support Kelly's decision. After Dominique leaves, Kelly eats dried grape leaves that grew on P. Pfluger's grave. Kelly was then sick to the point of coughing. Sarah, who was looking for Dominique, accidentally saw Kelly's weak condition. She immediately left before Kelly noticed her presence. Adler then approached Kelly and offered to help find foster parents and a place to live for Kelly, but Kelly didn't seem interested. Adler also said that the rock supporting Kelly's caravan seemed to have been pulled by something, causing the caravan to topple over. Kelly then thought that it was not an accident, but a deliberate act. On the other hand, Nelson and his friends seemed happy because they managed to prank Kelly. They don't feel guilty in the slightest, even though their actions have taken someone's life. Even Nelson and his friends did not hesitate to mock Kelly, who was in the car with a police officer. Burning with emotion, Kelly jumped out of Sheriff Adler's oncoming car and chased Nelson's gang. Nelson and his friends were about to swim into the river. Kelly was secretly hiding in the trees by the river. Tucker got into the water first. Kelly then tore off Tucker's shirt and ate it. Then he strangled himself with his shirt until Tucker was out of breath in the water. Nelson and the others attempt to save Tucker. Unfortunately, Tucker was dead and Kelly smirked with satisfaction. Defiantly, Kelly said who was next. The frightened Reed immediately ran away. Kelly takes Tony's shirt to continue his revenge, but Sheriff Adler rushed in and Kelly ran away from there. Nelson and his friends again blamed Kelly for their friend's death when questioned by police, but Sheriff Adler still had his doubts. That evening, Dominique and Sarah were talking about Kelly on the phone. Sarah suspects Kelly of everything that happened to Brad and Tucker, but Dominique defended Kelly and immediately hung up. Dominique was startled by a knock on the window, which turned out to be Kelly. Kelly asked Dominique out because there was something he wanted to talk about. They took a short walk. Kelly admits what he did to Tucker. He did all that because he wanted to take revenge on Nelson and the others for their actions that had killed his mother. Dominique tries to advise Kelly that revenge is not the way out. Dominique suggests that he lure Nelson to confession, not by killing him and the others. The next day, Kelly shows up at the physics lab and tries to provoke Tony. They then fight. An annoyed Tony then splashed hot liquid on Kelly's face. But what melted was Tony's face. Kelly's face didn't hurt in the slightest. Everyone in the lab was shocked by what happened, including Nelson, who looks panicked and scared. Kelly then urges Nelson to confess to his actions, which killed his mother and blew up his house. But Sheriff Adler rushed in and Kelly rushed out of there. Sarah visits Nelson at night. She told Nelson about Kelly's weakness. They rushed to P. Pfluger's grave and took the dried grape leaves by the roots. Nelson then soaked the leaves and put the water soaked in the dried grape leaves into the tube. Sheriff Adler finally admitted that what Red Elk said about Kelly was true. Red Elk and the cop finally dismantle P. Pfluger's grave to perform a ritual to make Kelly lose his powers. Sheriff Adler then goes to the school and tries to explain everything that happened to Gus, but the coach didn't believe it. Adler then checked Nelson's car. He found a chain and rock remains. The police then interrogated Nelson, but Nelson still didn't admit it. Then came Kelly, who threatened to drill Nelson's leg if he didn't admit what he had done. Nelson remained adamant. Kelly drilled his leg and Nelson was the one who got the wound and the pain. Dominique, who saw the incident, immediately approached Kelly. Nelson sprayed water-soaked in dried grape leaves on his body when Kelly was off guard. Kelly instantly became weak. At the same time, Gus snatches a gun from Adler and shoots Kelly in the head. But it turns out that Kelly's strength is still there and the shot kills Gus and Nelson. Seeing two people die in front of him because of Kelly's power, Dominique felt very disappointed. Dominique says Kelly has changed. She didn't like the current Kelly and hated him. Kelly, very sad that Dominique now hates him, immediately grabs Adler's gun and tries to kill himself. But Sheriff Adler tries to calm Kelly down by saying that Red Elk can take away his powers. Dominique, who was still worried about Kelly's condition, then persuaded him. Kelly finally gave up the intention to commit suicide. In the evening, Red Elk performs his rituals on Kelly, accompanied by Adler and Dominique. When finished, Red Elk says that the power has been fused in Kelly, and the only way to get rid of that power is to kill Kelly so that her power is transferred to Red Elk. Suddenly the police came to the cemetery area, hunting for Kelly, who is now a fugitive. Kelly tries to escape with Dominique, but the police manage to shoot Kelly and also injure Dominique. The two immediately fell into P. Pfluger's grave. Kelly wasn't hurt, but Dominique was dying. Seeing the only person he loved showed no signs of life, Kelly was determined to eat half of P. Pfluger's lung. Kelly died instantly. Sheriff Adler could only weep over the unfortunate fate that befell Kelly and Dominique. When the bodies of Kelly and Dominique were in the ambulance, suddenly Dominique woke up in good health and only felt an itching sensation in her chest. It turns out that Kelly's healing powers have been transferred to Dominique because Kelly is dead. The film ends.